Meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee. I'll start calling the meeting to order, and item number 1, public comment. Assuming we don't have anybody in the public.
No, Chief's the only one in the meeting.
Okay. Then we'll move right into the discussion items.
So I should share my screen, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Please discuss building design-related topics. Results of the May 18th community meeting.
Plugged in there to put it up on the screen here.
No, I know.
So, as I was mentioning before we kind of started, sad I couldn't be there, but it seemed to have a really good turnout. I thought the questions were well answered. I don't know if we got any new questions at that meeting. The ones I heard all seemed to be
Can you turn on your,
similar to ones that we already had. I don't know if anyone felt differently, anything that we should add.
I think there were
to
some
the
questions, but
FAQs.
I think some of them weren't necessarily gonna be valuable for the FAQ, like paint colors or,
Yeah, there was, comments on the color of the building, the roof lines,
Yeah.
the open space in front of the building. We had about 20 questions, that at least I recorded
yeah.
notes on. Consideration for solar, whether windows were operable, energy efficiency, which was a good question. Does it include the demo of the old building? Some of them were pretty straightforward, yes and no.
Did anyone happen to mention how they heard about the meeting? I don't know if it was me making the announcement at town meeting, if they saw it somewhere else. I'm just wondering. That was obviously by far the best attendance we've had.
I think town meeting had something to do with it, plus the community page folks have been great about pushing meeting announcements out as well as us doing that. I think maybe,
Or people just like to meet at the library instead of the fire station.
We try that too. I think there was a good turnout from whatever, I forget the name of the condo complex.
River's Edge.
River's Edge, that they all, they all talk, and there was a good turnout from those residents there.
So it might not be indicative going forward.
I mean, it's a good thing, I guess.
yeah, I
don't know,
think
I
they're
still
involved
it's
group
good.
and care about these sorts of things,
Right.
both public safety and their wallet, so.
And when you consider the most people who go out and vote, they're all gonna be there.
I think it was a mix of things, and I think the message is getting out there one way or another, so, which is, I guess, the point of the whole
Right.
process, so, it seems to be working, I guess.
Good. Anything else anybody wants to discuss from that meeting? Okay. We can talk about maybe future community meetings. I want to touch quickly on Community Day once we kind of get through these discussion items, so maybe we can talk about planning the next one. I don't remember when we have it on the schedule, but we can go over that when we get down there. Low voltage update?
Sure. Do you want us to start with the easement?
Oh,
Because Rich is
yeah,
here.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And that wasn't on the
Rich-
agenda, but we can move that right to the front. if
Yep.
you're
Rich, no, he doesn't want to sit for the whole meeting.
I appreciate his being willing to come on short
Yeah,
notice.
Thank you, Rich.
Is there a chair here for you?
It was like the old days, Rich.
Turn the TV
Exactly.
on.
So Rich McCarthy, Norfolk Town Planner, for those of you who haven't met me before. But everybody in this room, except for you, I don't think I've ever met before. but-
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, so thank you for a few moments. Is that the,
That's the plan,
yeah, okay.
and that's the easement.
Yeah. Is it okay if I actually stand
Sure.
stand up to talk from
Yeah.
there? Okay. So in terms of, so as you know, the town of Norfolk applied to the town of Norfolk for a variance. For a variance in this location here where the drainage swale is, as well as a special permit to reduce the total width of the buffer from 50 feet down to 30. The ZBA is well, I need to prepare the decision for the special permit, which will be forthcoming, but, there wasn't much necessarily concerned about going from 50 to 30. What has come up more so the concern relative to the variance in terms of meeting the statutory requirements in order to grant variance. In discussions with, I spoke to the chair of the ZBA, and he had spoken to me about potential option to consider to eliminate the variance, which would be to plant trees there now on this section, obviously outside the easement area between and the property line, because within the B1 zoning district, there is, in that same section and deals with the screening, there is, which I haven't spoke to the planning board about this, but we just talked about this 2 days ago. They have discretion, which when Ron had bid before them, where there is existing vegetation, you can supplement things to provide screening. Or if there's adequate screening, they could waive it. So his thought being that if this were to be planted relatively now, in the spirit of the intent of the bylaw, consider existing vegetation, and then the planning board would be just granting a waiver. So it wouldn't need another variance, which would remove the need to try to seek the variance in totality. Because again, there are circumstances related in terms of the variance, but when you look at the statutory requirements, it's a high bar. So you really got to make a strong connection to why the variance should be granted. And some of the underlying, I understand the underlying issues here, but it's not something that it was an existing condition in terms of the hardship. It was something that the town purchased this property with an easement, but that bylaw requirement was in place at the time when this property was purchased. So buyer beware, in terms of potential encumbrances, and this is not in terms of when variances come in, we advise people who come before the board that, which is good practice. If you're buying a piece of property and looking for a variance, the hardship, you're buying something with some encumbrances on it. So considering all those things, this is a potential option to get away from having to worry about the variance. Presumably, the planning board agrees to that. So the practical potential approach would be I know you're submitting the plans next Monday.
Yeah.
The planning board will, this project will be before the planning board on the July 12th meeting, and we could discuss it then to get a temperature from the planning board in terms of this scenario, if it would be acceptable. And then the ZBA doesn't meet until the day after, which is the 15th. They're not gonna,
13th?
yeah, okay.
Well, select board decided to be on the 14th, so I'm guessing.
All right, let me, you know what, my apologies. So the ZBA is the 20th. So it's the
Okay.
week after. So the ZBA would be the week after. Because of two full members, they're not gonna be available next week at the ZBA. So they weren't gonna deliberate on this at all. So they weren't gonna be discussing it, so.
So where exactly would we plant?
So it really is the different, and just one more point. We would mimic what we did on the other side. So, we did do that site visit with the chief and then Bob and so forth. So not plant all the way up onto Main Street, because there's a balance between, meeting the intent of the bylaw and providing good sight line. So basically you're filling in.
This yellow that he just put there, would that be what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's,
'Cause it's in-
this one's 40 feet, Ron, I
Yes.
believe we did it.
Yep, so we'd say 40 feet back.
So let's see, 40 feet back, so I don't know, roughly
Is the
what?
red dotted line the easement area?
Yeah,
So we would be inside it a smidge.
Yep, so and that's why I put this up here. So when we first started. So here's actually the deed, right? So this is when the town purchased the property. This is a 2-page deed. And so this paragraph right here is this paragraph right here. And what we learned in researching the deed was that easement, the sole purpose of the easement is to protect and install an underground drainage system between the Granger's parking lot and the town of Norfolk stormwater drainage system. So basically, at some point in time, the town recognized that this was being done simply for the ability for them to install this drainage swale. So as you can see here, we came all the way up to where we think was a safe distance away from the drainage swale, and we're planting trees in there. So I think what Rich is saying is along those same lines here, we're gonna plant in this area here, right? Stay out of the drainage area, protect the drainage area, and don't impede the drainage. So this, like, is what you were talking
Yeah,
about too.
because I
like, just-
wasn't, because if it had to be outside the red dotted line, then I was worried that that wouldn't make the driveway possible.
No, we've kind of interpreted this as it's the sole purpose of
Yeah, no, I
installing-
understand, I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, so
Got it.
we're kind of like building right up against it and leaving it, so that we're good.
It just,
Right, but let's talk through the intent of all of this legal language, right? I mean, I think what I'm hearing from Rich is that if we were to plant some trees, we might be able to not ask for variance.
correct.
Yeah,
Right, okay. But the reason we're asking for a variance is because the reason the bylaws exist is to provide adequate screening between commercial properties and residential properties.
Correct.
Right, so between the residential property to the plan right, we're providing the appropriate screening because it's a residential property.
right,
To the plan left, it's only a residential property in name.
Correct.
It's actually a religious property and there's a church on the corner. Right, the reason it's a residential property is because there's a residence on the south side of the lot, which isn't neighboring this lot. Right, so the only reason we're required to put trees here is because of a black and white interpretation of legal language.
And the zone is R2, so the church is built in an
Right.
R2 zone.
Right,
Right.
right, so the church is built in an R2 zone. So part of the reasoning behind asking for the variance was we're not really improving the condition by providing the screening that's required by the variance.
Right.
All we're doing is spending the town's money.
So what, that point is definitely understood. However, the bar, the standard for which you have to make the case to get a variance is based on the shape, topography, soil condition. It's not those elements of it. So what's the connection between that and the variance?
So when we did our site walk, and we came up with this whole, like, we're gonna supplement the existing vegetation here, we're going to skip it along here because it's very well vegetated already, and there's ledge to be removed. We're gonna start it here, and we're gonna go as close as we can to the, Rich was out there, building inspector was out there, we were out there, landscape architects, everybody was involved. And so that's kind of the way that we had left it. And then there was a discussion during that meeting as to whether or not we just didn't plant in the drainage swale, because it says the sole purpose of that is the drainage swale, or if we need to go for a variance. And the decision was, well, let's go for the variance, just so we have all the paperwork that says we didn't have to build in the drainage swale, because there were people at that meeting who thought you can't build in the drainage swale, right? We have a legal deed that says you have to protect or allow the installation of the drainage swale, so you're not gonna build something in the drainage swale. And our landscape architects were saying, yeah, that would not be a good thing to build within the drainage swale. So that's why we put together the variance request. And I think what's coming up right now correct me if I'm wrong, is maybe you don't need a variance. Because remember, when we started this project a long time ago, we were told, Norfolk doesn't offer variances, right? Like the bylaws are the bylaws, end of story. And so we thought, all right, well, let's go for the variance. And now I think what Rich is proposing is there's another way around this, which is somehow if there were plantings along there already, in other words, next week or the week after or something like that, the town went out there and planted vegetation there, then we wouldn't have to supplement it. That would be up to the planning board as part of their review, because they have the authority to do that as just part of their review, as opposed to getting a zoning variance.
So a couple questions I have. Do these things that have had, whatever these plantings are, do they have to be done before we apply for the construction permit or before we submit the plans for approval to the planning board? At what point are they considered pre-existing? Because I don't think it's a lie to say that everybody in town, if we suddenly plant things there, is going to be like, well, what are they doing? Something's up. They're trying to hide something. They're trying to do something outside of the norm. There's no secret that we're building something on this property.
Yeah,
So what do we need to achieve that standard of considering it existing planting?
In the absolute ideal situation, I'm sure, I'd like to have them planted before the plan, not before filing, I guess, but before the hearing. But I think that's where, it's a greater question, right? We're certainly, I think the idea is before a permit would be granted, because you're applying next week. The hearing will be in July. It's going to take a couple months to minimum to go through the permitting process. So, more likely you're looking at a permanent September timeframe.
This is a better time to plant anyway.
And-
So somebody might raise issue with that, certainly. What I will say is the reason why I'm here is people are raising a larger issue with trying to have a variance granted when that variance doesn't meet the statutory requirements, the hardship. So
I think the hardship lies with the taxpayer, who's going to have to front money to put plants that don't need to be there just to meet some sort of legal guideline that had never anticipated this existing. So who has the greater
What's
priority?
So to that point, Justin, what is the value of putting trees there?
To meet a bylaw.
There's no value.
So,
let me just back up. Now, I'm presuming you discussed this. There was another alternative, but that wasn't pursued, which was to change the zoning to have this partially in a business district, and then that goes away. So there was a decision made not to do that. That decision would eliminate this whole discussion. And there was time to do that, but also the concern with the time of the project. So there wasn't another alternative to avoid your question. That path wasn't chosen.
I just think, I'm completely new to the town politics thing, and there seems to be a lot of things that the town is requiring of a town-owned building that are costing the town taxpayers additional money for no good reason. And nobody is flexible on any of those items, and I just don't see where our priorities lie.
So
Our priority, I think, to be blunt about it, is wanting to move this project forward and not having it get completely derailed
All right.
because someone wants to, appeal not grant a variance or appeal it if it's gotten to shut the whole thing down. So,
Yeah,
is there an artful solution of some amount of trees? And yes, it's spending money. I can't sugarcoat that, to be able to keep moving forward.
But then,
Or is there a reasonable alternative to grant a variance?
right.
Yeah, I understand.
So there's another piece to this which you have to think about. In your seat, I understand it. If you sit in the seat of the permitting board, what they have to do is they try to keep the same standard to the town as they're asking private developers.
Mhm.
Because at the same time, if they give the town a break, then the private developers. So they're gonna hold the town to the same standard as a developer.
But it was pointed out that this building is too tall to meet the town bylaws. I just don't,
It meets it.
I don't know, I appreciate that, I just feel like it's very much like,
But I just want to reiterate here, because we're walking a fine line with this one. We're not asking the town to do us a favor by granting
Right.
this variance.
Right.
We're simply asking the town to grant a variance, which we feel is justified.
By a legal deed.
yeah.
The other,
So the risk is that they don't grant you the variance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And so you have to address the issue. The other risk is.
Accept the risk.
And the secondary risk is if they do grant it, somebody else might challenge it. Because it doesn't meet the standard. And so you have to defend that. So there's two,
So the standard is a hardship
yeah,
on the property owner.
related to the property.
And the property owners are the citizens of the town of Norfolk, who are the taxpayers.
But the hardship is related to the property, not who owns it. Okay, it's the shape of the property, soil conditions, topography, those are the standard bearers. There is
Not what it
a,
means to taxpayers.
Right.
So if it's soil conditions, you can't plant in an easement, I mean, you can't plant in a drainage easement.
I think the answer to Justin's question is the taxpayers in the past have voted to put these encumbrances on development
Right.
to encumber development.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Regardless of whether it's a private developer or the town.
right,
Yeah.
And I
In
certainly
this
don't think
instance,
that-
it's becoming readily apparent that those encumbrances are now impacting the town, not just private developers.
I mean, I appreciate the one set of rules for everybody. I don't like the rules for me and not for the idea, but
Yeah, no favoritism.
Yeah.
I guess like, I mean, we didn't look into rezoning the church because it seemed like maybe that wasn't gonna be a viable alternative. We're gonna be
Right.
back to square one anyway, and
Yep.
we'd lose all the time
Yeah.
going to a vote that
And there
gets
was a-
shot down.
I also want to remind everyone, sorry to cut you off, was that when we had that discussion, it was with the planning board.
Right.
And when we talked about, well, here's an option, we could rezone the church, the concern came in, well, does the church comply with the B1 zoning that they would become, or the commercial zoning that they would become? Which got into a discussion of they wouldn't, and oh, by the way, they don't comply to the R2 either.
well, no, the church is exempt because it's a
Well,
religious use, so.
Correct, but that's where the conversation was heading. I think you probably said exactly that during the
Right.
meeting, that it doesn't matter because the church is an existing building and we're just rezoning this. Because we were talking about exactly this, right? We were talking about the green belt. And I think members of the church were there that night saying that they had literally changed their parking situation or revised their parking situation and built this drainage at the town's request. So now they felt like, you know, they shouldn't be blamed, you know, quote unquote, blamed for having to do all these,
Encumbered.
right, jump through hoops, which I think everybody agreed that we wouldn't be blaming them or doing anything to their property. We would just be trying to rezone this, which I think Blythe pointed out at that meeting, takes a vote at town meeting. And then if the vote at town meeting doesn't pass, we're
Back at square
back
one.
at square one, trying to get either a variance or a planning board approval to supplement existing plans.
Yeah, so I think the point is, there was a reason why we didn't look to rezone the
Correct.
church. I think the thought of this committee was, we're meeting the intent of the bylaw because every residential view of this building is gonna be screened by vegetation. Yes, the church is a residential district, but the actual residence attached to the church is gonna be screened by the vegetation that is south of that easement.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think anybody's disputing that.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's really, you know.
But, so you're back to,
The black and white.
we're really just doing this to meet the bylaw when there's really no purpose to the vegetation whatsoever.
I have a question.
Avoiding a
about-
bigger problem.
I guess it's more kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit. Can anybody challenge if okay, so there's obviously people that are opposed to this project. Some of them have the time to, you know, dig really deep into that. If they challenge it, could it derail the project over something?
The challenge
Quite
goes,
minuscule.
yeah, it goes to court, so.
So, I mean, I'm with all of you that I feel like it's checking a box just for the sake of checking a box. But if it's something small that saves the project from going forward, or I guess saves the project from being derailed,
I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to putting trees there right now, but when do they have to be in? How many trees? What
Well,
type? What
yeah,
size?
I-
What if they have to be removed during construction? Like,
Well, I
we need
think
to
they would
line
be-
all that
They
up.
would be part of the construction project.
Yeah, I would.
They wouldn't go in
Put 'em
ahead of
in
time.
now.
yeah.
Right. There's also a negative side to putting trees there, right? It cuts down sight lines from the fire trucks pulling in and out of the station.
Well, I
right?
think
It
that's why
it cuts down the visibility of
We
the
hold it
station
back
from the
40 feet.
townspeople from the street as they're going by.
Well, again, I
So-
mean, just to we did pull it, you know, again, there was some flexibility in terms of this side. We didn't go all the way up to the property line, which if you took the strictest interpretation, you'd be up there with the plantings. So we said, look, logically speaking, okay, you wanna have good line of sight, so that's why we pulled it back.
And they're
So-
shorter ones,
Right.
closer to the,
Right, and we're
Yeah,
talking
I reckon
about,
they're shorter.
you know, essentially mirroring it on the other side.
This
Right,
would be
but
a question
we've
for the
also
chief.
had conversations about the civic nature of the building and the fact that it represents a town department in the center of the town, right? Similar conversations were had about how the police station ended up in the woods on a back street, right? So there's a perception, there's a value in having the fire station be present in the center of town. And hiding it behind trees reduces its presence in the center of the town.
I think,
I think,
I was just gonna say, I think to answer your question as to when, like if we were building this project, like all those screen trees, they're probably gonna go in late August or early September 2024.
So I completely misread what was going on. I thought you were coming in here to be like, hey, get out the shovels tomorrow, so when you go to the planning board, we don't need this variance, so that there's some sort
can
of
you stop
thing
at the garden
growing
center on your way
there.
home?
Well,
So something grows here, so
That
we
was
can do
discussed.
this.
That was the discussion.
Yeah.
no, so to be clear, that is still a discussion point that hasn't been discussed, so. Because the bylaw says existing, so.
Right.
What does that mean? So that's where the planning board discussion would have to come into this,
Hopefully
which I.
the spirit of this would be, let's get them in this fall ahead, protect them during construction.
Yeah, it might be something like that, but we haven't had a discussion, right? So I can't, you know.
So,
But I think to everybody's comment about getting them in ahead of construction, you can see that there's a drive that's gonna need to be paved there.
yeah,
You got the stormwater swale on the other side. It just makes, I guess what I would say is if we do plant, like, let's just decide that if we decided to plant them before the construction starts, then our plans will say excavate them during construction, heal them somewhere else on site, and then replant them. So which is what you do with existing vegetation that you wanna restore.
Otherwise, they're not gonna make it.
And then over the course of time, you're dealing with their roots,
Yep.
digging up your driveway
Right.
and impacting the performance of the drainage system.
so that was gonna be my other question, is that if the direction is, hey, to meet the bylaw, you guys gotta put plantings here. We tell Doran Witter, yeah, the town is telling you, put plantings here. And then that planting affects the drainage swale.
We'd have to go out there and measure and actually stake in the ground where the plants could go, so it doesn't affect the parking or the drainage structure.
Yeah, but the root
That-
system.
that'd be the
you're not
next
gonna
step.
It couldn't be spreading,
Well,
we'd have to
this
go with
drainage-
tapping roots.
So this is a swale in here, there's no, I don't know if there's any structures on the ground.
No, it's all gravel.
It's
and there-
riprap.
There is
Right.
underground piping,
Right.
so.
So it depends on the vegetation, but vegetation likes water, so it's kind of, you know, it's not like,
Yeah, but the drainage swale still needs to be able to drain, regardless of the vegetation's affinity for water.
Well, then put the trees in the middle of the drainage swale.
yeah, it's called a wet
Back to the
basin.
sight line too. It's not just
Yeah.
the trucks viewing as they're
Yeah.
coming out, it's the other people coming down the road with their music blasting.
Yeah, the
not hearing
vehicles need to be
sirens.
able to see the fire trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, there is,
Like, that's a hardship right there. If I'm driving down the street and all of a sudden a fire truck magically appears behind a forest, like, that's hazardous for myself and for the folks driving the fire truck.
Not to mention they're coming out of the building, getting some speed going.
Right.
Then they have to get to the end, slow down, look, go again.
Well, that's why the 40 feet back was critical on both sides.
And you'll have to maintain the height of those plantings and not just let them go. I mean, they're supposed to go in, the minimum height 6 feet, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Keep
well,
them
that
at
was
6.
discussion that, when we're out on the site talking about maintaining the plantings as it was, because you want to keep them, you know,
What type of plantings are we talking about here? Like, what qualifies as a tree according to this bylaw?
well, it'll be an evergreen.
Yeah. White pine, spruce, something like that.
Something like that, along those lines.
So actually, I'm gonna Sorry, I shut my screen off for a minute because I wanted to get an aerial view. So, can everybody see that at home? I guess
Hope so,
I'm
yeah.
sharing the right screen.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, I can't scroll in anymore. This is as close as the satellite gets. But you can see here that this is the area that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a trench.
Right, and it does have some kind of, like, if we go out there and take a picture, you know, there are little plants already that exist. And so what we would need to do is just go take a look at that, because I think the priority here is, like, don't impede that. Like, it has to be a functioning drainage system. And if you know, that's basically what the deed says, is that, you know, in consideration of selling this to the town, we get a drainage system installed. That works. That connects to the city, the town drainage system. So, as there's no, it is a swale. It's got crushed stone in it, or 3/4 inch stone.
And then there's an outlet pipe.
And there's an outlet pipe, right.
Yeah, there's an outlet pipe here that goes across the street,
Yep.
goes into it. Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and that's the, you know, the thought to how to, meet the spirit and intent of it and not have to do the variance. And so we could,
So is that a direction saying that this will meet the spirit and intent, or is that a, let's hope this meets the spirit and intent?
so that's where the planning board discussion comes in, as you mentioned, so, because that lies with the planning board if this were, so they would have to understand the purpose and intent of that and be comfortable with it as part of their approval process. So that's why I don't have any discussion with them at all, so they have no idea about this idea until they watch this meeting right now. Beyond that, so that'd be something we have to just, would be part of the discussion on the 12th. Because if that's not acceptable, then it's a different choice.
So then do we pursue both of these routes simultaneously, or what's the answer?
We effectively are, right? So the 12th is, which I got my date right this time, is the planning board meeting. So the planning board meeting is going to discuss this.
Mhm.
This is the idea. We discuss this concept. On the 20th, 8 days later, the ZBA will have the opportunity to hear, you know, the discussion in terms of the planning board, and then they'll deliberate and discuss it, and then they can take a vote. So there is an opportunity to explore this before the vote is taken. So that's probably really essential what we're all saying at the moment. Explore this opportunity. Don't close it out yet. And because again, to your point, there might be other people that use this in terms of they believe they've not met it and they go appeal it. And which is very common when it comes to permitting that we experience. People aren't pleased by a project, and then they appeal it, and it gets tied in litigation. And sometimes people stick it out, the litigation, or sometimes they make a settlement. So it is a, you know.
But that's only if we pursue the variance, right?
Right. If you pursue
the
the
planning board and the ZBA say, no, this meets the intent of the bylaw,
Then there's
nobody
no-
can argue it.
Right.
No.
And not being an attorney, I think the issue is about whether or not plants are planted. It's not
That is
about the building getting built, it's not about anything else, it's about, do plants get planted? So if push came to shove, worst case scenario, some, you know, court officer or a judge or somebody like that says, nope, you gotta plant them. Then in 2024, we plant the trees. You know, but if somebody says, no, this is, you know, it's something that, it is a hardship, then we end up not planting it. But the question then becomes, to everybody's concern about cost, I think you said it earlier, the lawyers are gonna make a lot of money,
Yeah.
you know, because this is gonna be argued and debated and, you know.
I mean, if the simplest solution is to put like 8 trees there this week, then
Yeah.
like, I don't think there's a high cost to that, and if that's gonna solve the problem, but nobody's, like, we don't know yet if that's gonna solve the problem.
Right.
But, like, it would have been better if they had come to us and said, is this an option? This will meet the standard, and we could be like, oh yeah, we'll just do that.
So was this a recommendation from the ZBA? Planting these trees
Just the
there?
chair. Yeah, it wasn't, he became aware of the concern about meeting the standard and people questioning this variance and meeting the standard, and which is a valid point, that it's always kind of that push issue with variances, and thought of a potentially creative idea to have a solution.
Yeah.
So,
So that's the off-agenda
off-agenda.
discussion of the easement.
Yeah, so I think we just need to understand, Ron, if that affects the site plan at all,
Right.
putting trees there.
And we can get our landscape architect to take a look at that, and, I can, next week when I'm down here, I can just take those measurements for her and, tell her what we think in terms of how much space there is between the proposed entrance drive and
Right.
and the drainage swale.
Can we legally plant in the drainage swale?
So that was part of the discussion when we met out there. The issue was you can't obstruct the drainage swale. So the question of how close can you plant to it was,
Let me rephrase the question.
yeah, the building inspector would have to sign off on it.
I'm assuming that the landscape architect could creatively meet the screening requirements while planting in the drainage easement.
We could turn it into a bioswale. We could give them a drainage solution that is not gravel with an outlet pipe.
It's not rip.
And it's
It's-
not oak trees and.
It's not oak trees,
Yeah.
it's, some kind of environmental plants that would allow that to not only drain, but to treat the water. And, then there's the question of maintenance, of course.
Does that help us with our stormwater BMPs? Cause it'd be like a double win.
It might, it might, but, just.
I gotta ask.
It's just exactly the conversation we had about our site, right? So if we put in drainage swales the way that they did, there's a lot less maintenance. If we put in the biodetention areas that we've designed, there are plants that go in there. So then the question is, what kind of plants? So in order to avoid high maintenance grow plants, we're using the bioswale grasses. And it would be a question for the planning board, can we put bioswale grasses in there and have that comply with the,
Right, but all of a sudden, you're now finding value in a scenario where you're taking a riprap drainage swale in the center of town next to a parking lot that has no trees in it, and you're putting in a vegetated drainage swale that actually has aesthetic value to the town and
Right.
presumably performs better over the course of time. So if you're gonna do it right.
That would actually be worth the investment.
so that's a good question, and that we would have to engage the church in that discussion,
yeah.
because it's their drainage swale.
Right. With the contractor be going on private property.
Yeah,
Okay.
we would probably actually do that outside the scope of this work, because it comes down to like a timing thing, it comes down to everything, so, we'd wanna probably just do that as a little standalone effort.
The town could do that in support of the project.
Correct.
So to answer your question, Blake, there could be a good possibility for some BMPs, because I doubt there's any water quality improvement going on there.
No.
So,
Gotta
and
get
that-
something good out of
right,
this.
so that, that could very well be, maybe it turns around a win-win, but, so I'm just here to, bring it to your attention and potentially, avoid maybe an issue that could pop up, with the project, but you don't wanna have issues related to the project as a whole that are.
Right.
So do we have enough time now, between now and whenever the plans get submitted, to make that an actual thing that's coordinated and fleshed out between the parties and put on
To
the
be
plan?
honest with you, I would just wait, like have the discussion and then do that, because I don't want to have you spend money on doing a plan, design, all this stuff, and then like, no, we're not going to do it, right? So just it'd be good to have the discussion and then follow up with the plan changes.
in that discussion.
Be cognizant of the money for the town.
We're trying.
No, what I just suggested, do it that way. But we also do the private developers too. We try to minimize plan changes till we really know there's a good solution in place. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta go back to my original.
Anybody want to discuss that any further?
Not really.
It's definitely kept us on our toes the last 2 days, just coming up and figuring out how to deal with it.
So Ron, the next step is to meet with the planning board and present what the two options, one, just doing straight tree plantings versus actually converting it to like a bio swale.
Is there a height?
But I mean, but think about it,
Yeah, there is.
what if the project proceeded with the variance request?
You run the risk of it being appealed.
Potentially. The town could, in support of the project and in support of not being sued, could support a drainage swale reclamation project, which on the town's project and dollar and dime came in and rebuilt the riprap drainage swale to some sort of vegetated screen drainage swale. It takes a little project outside of this committee, puts it in the town's hands to solve the town's problem, and we go on our way and finish what we're doing.
But
I
if someone
think-
appeals it and then it gets held up in court for.
No, it wouldn't be, well, if you were able to avoid it, then you've got to just, I don't know what that costs to do, figure out how to do it and the timing to do it and get everyone to kind of sign off that that's the artful solution.
Yeah, and I guess my point in that is the town, I'm guessing, could execute on that drainage swale project a lot quicker than this committee and this project can, right?
Well, yeah, as part of this project's not gonna get done.
But you would
until-
need some kind of design,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, what to put in there, what's applicable to it, you're not just
Yeah, well,
throwing grass
again,
seed in.
The town could take that on, right?
Actually, separating it from this project, if it does get appealed, it's not part of this project. It's the, like how you phrased that, it's the town's drainage restoration project,
Reclamation.
reclamation project. It's not
I wrote that
the,
down.
it's not the fire station project.
Right. But there'd just be a need, so maybe at a fall town meeting, there could be a project funded to design and, and put in. I don't know what the cost is, I have no idea, but
Yeah, but what does that
whether we
mean,
can do it
like,
ourselves or we could have someone do it.
but then does that have to get built before our permits would be approved and our project could go forward?
If it had to be done before the planning board permitted, that would be challenged. If it had to be done before,
Not if we get a variance, right? We
Yeah,
get a
but if some-
variance, our
if some-
project goes forward. The town's protecting themselves by creating a screen that this project didn't create.
But can't someone appeal
yeah,
the variance and
They
that
can.
would hold, and that
They
would hold
could,
up the
but then
project?
the town moving faster than our project,
Yeah, we don't know that that's gonna happen.
exactly, because we don't have a line item, Public Works doesn't have a budget to go out and decide to go reclamate a drainage swale
Could you use
necessarily.
could you use the money that we're getting from the feds for drainage to be a part of that?
ARPA funds?
I'm not sure what the funds are exactly.
You could use
Water.
ARPA funds or something like that.
If there was,
That wasn't on the plan we gave the select board last night, but it could be.
I'm gonna rephrase my statement. The reason we're asking for the variance is, one, because we think it's right.
Mhm.
We think it's a hardship, and we think there's no value in putting the trees there. That's why we went to ask for the variance in the first place. None of those things have changed. The town has pointed out a potential legal risk. Let the town address their concern for the legal risk.
That's gonna be this project, I mean,
Yeah, I think, look, I agree with everything you just said. The ZBA was like incredibly supportive of this project when we met with them.
They actually
So-
said it was a
so-
no-brainer.
So something
All right.
has changed since then. Somebody got the zoning board's ear.
Mhm.
And so whoever that was, or whether it was a group of people, is surely going to, I think, fight the variance at this point. So if we go the variance route, I think it's more likely than not it's gonna get a piece of.
So trying to see if we have this artful solution, whether we put something in or we just trees or some, change the swale, might be the better hand of cards to play.
And separate that scope from this project.
Okay, it's just that someone will have to, we'll have to start to figure out Todd will have to figure out how that gets funded and done.
Hard
I'm
luck.
just saying that because then if there's an appeal for any of that, that has nothing to do with our project.
No, I
It's a
understand.
separate,
Right.
standalone, like
Yeah.
you were saying.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between somebody appealing something and having to resolve that, and somebody appealing something and it stops the project.
Exactly.
Like, I don't, you know, from my own personal view on this, planting a dozen or so trees along a property line as part of a phased, you know, it's at the end of the project, even if it's like taken on by somebody else, usually doesn't stop a project like this. I mean, you know, lots of projects, even in the middle of the project, a neighbor asks, hey, you know, to be a good neighbor, can you plant some trees here because we didn't think you'd be so close to our property line? And towns and cities do that all the time. You know, can you put a fence up, can you do this, can you do that? In this particular instance, it happens to be a bylaw. We would apply for a variance. If the variance was denied, then we leave it up to the building inspector to tell us whether or not we have the right to build on top of a, you know, a drainage swale when the deed says you can't impede the drainage swale. So, you know, I just think that there's a couple of steps here, and I think all Rich was trying to say is, on July whatever, 12th, we're gonna meet with the planning board, let's run it by them. We're not withdrawing our variance request.
Right.
And then on July 20th, if we don't get any kind of favorable approval, if you will, from the planning board, then we seek the variance. So to somebody's question earlier, we're doing both things at once. We're giving two town boards an opportunity to weigh in on it, and then we can decide where you go from there, you know?
Yeah, I think Rich was about to write the decision based on that last meeting, and then phone calls or something happened.
And we're gonna discuss two options with the planning board, because I think we all agree that bioretention is a great solution, but that requires going on the church's property. So then it requires the church's
Yeah.
permission.
And then I can just, you know, not to be a stick in the mud here, but the next question is gonna be, can the town's payers actually fund work built on private property and not town property?
You're not supposed to.
So, you know, that's the next piece of it. And so, you know, I think that there's a couple of different things that need to be discussed in order to resolve this. And, you know, that may be the reason why Rich continues to say, why don't we just rezone the church? But there's a risk there, too.
Sure.
Because like I said, you know, people now see this as, you know, we're voting on something before we even know if the fire station's gonna pass, right?
Yeah, I think if we can have an option that, it's so ridiculous, but, if we can have an option that is on the fire station property, eliminates the need for a variance, I guess that option has to be on the table. And if we can be, you know, it's probably not the ideal solution, because improving that swale is the ideal solution, but there might be hiccups to doing that. Timeline and just because it's on private property. So we probably have to have some backup plan that if the variance gets held up or appealed, that we have some fallback plan that says, well, we can do this and it's on our property and it'll meet the intent of the bylaw, and then we just move on.
Does it have to be plantings? Why can't you put a short section of fence up?
I was just thinking if.
Well,
fence-
it
was
talks
the
about
same
plantings. I mean,
Put some idea
Paint
on
it green.
Well, I mean, as a
paint
part,
trees on the fence, so
That's
it
part
looks
of the
like
discussion.
trees.
I'll do that.
And now so I think it's part of the discussion with the planning board, because the reality is if you have an outbuilding or a quote-unquote structure, it has to be screened with a fence.
Yeah. And this way, it doesn't,
So-
you don't have roots affecting
Right.
the swale
Right.
or the driveway, just posts in the ground.
Put in a
Still a
6 foot
sightline
fence.
issue though.
Well, you keep it to the same height as your plantings would
Because
have
we're
been.
gonna
and
do
stop it-
rhododendrons on the other side.
Fair enough.
Yeah, stop it at the 40-foot mark.
Mhm.
Maybe it at the end goes down a little bit or
Mhm.
something, it's a little bit fancier or something.
Okay.
Think that horse is dead.
Good. Low voltage update. Couple
Way to
things.
segue around.
Yep, moving along here. The station decided they do not need an intrusion alarm system. They've got enough card readers and things like that that they don't need an intrusion alarm system. The building is occupied 24/7. So that's one system gone away. Zetron has confirmed, this is a Zetron diagram right here.
I can't see it.
Let me,
I see Don Walter, which is great, but
yeah. So let me share my screen. So 2 of those low voltage systems have gone away. Zetron confirmed that all of those blue dots that you see there, they're alert speakers. The red dots that are solid are where we're gonna put in a 22-inch alert display. The little red dot with the A's, so 1, 2, 3 of them, or 2 of them rather, are gonna be a acknowledgement button. The displays also come with an acknowledgement button. They're sort of a touchscreen display. And then the R is a remote radio. So the vendor for Zetron actually put this drawing together with us
It was all
during a meeting. The company's called Allcom, and the decision was because they have done the Zetron system for the police station and for the dispatch, the regional dispatch, and somehow there's an agreement between regional dispatch and themselves and Allcom that the decision was made to purchase the Zetron system off the state bid list. For those unfamiliar, the state bid list is a consortium that basically puts together bids, low pricing, for organizations across the state. And Allcom would be basically hired to do this work. So from the construction point of view, we would be putting in back boxes and raceways for wiring. Allcom would come in, pull all the wires, put the faceplates on, put the devices in, and that's the alert system. And we've got that on 2 floors. So the first and second floor.
Right. I think they provide the boxes too for the electrical to install.
Even better. Yeah, that's right. So the speakers, yeah, so they're gonna provide the back boxes for the contractor to install.
What's the cost of the system?
We've asked them to price it out for us right now, but we do have this in the soft costs already. So we didn't tell them what that price would be, in case they're watching. So what we want them to do is kind of price it up and send it over. Now, in addition to that, the MEC, the regional dispatch, has put in for a grant for this money. And we'll find out about the grant at some point.
probably this late summer,
Yeah.
mid to late summer.
So can you show on this drawing where the speakers and
Yep,
screens and whatnot are?
Yep, so
I just can't
again,
see from this
all
angle.
of these, all of these red buttons now are the speakers, which is a different type of speaker. They're pendant speakers because we don't have a ceiling. And then the blues, again, are ceiling mounted speakers. And then we've got a Zetron screen here. And we've got a alert acknowledgement button here. And then what we've also decided was we're gonna put in 4 back boxes for a linear ticker tape announcement to be decided in the field. So during construction, we'll actually point to where they need to put that in.
So that, the one acknowledgement button that was just near your mouse, that's at the staircase that comes down from the admin side?
Correct.
And the actual machine itself, where's that? That's at the other staircase?
The other acknowledgement button?
Yep.
Yep, is at the top of the stair here
Okay,
and at the top of the pole.
so there's another one, okay. But
Yeah.
there's not, they're upstairs, not downstairs from those
Correct.
locations.
Yeah, the chief thought that was, they'd acknowledge on the way down.
And is there a outside speaker in the rear?
Actually, good.
So we did not elect to do an outside speaker. You know, with that being said, if we are, you know, usually like right now, we have no way to hear anything outside. And my personnel are pretty disciplined about having a radio on them when outside of the building. And knowing that the new technology with the bay speakers, they're pretty loud. And if we're outside, we're normally gonna have the bay doors open. So we should be able to hear, you know, and we shouldn't be training so far away from the building. Like if we're on a training deck, for example, it's right above where those open pull-through bays go, right? We'll probably be sitting right there in that area. And we'll have the radios, we'll also have, you know, so we did not elect to do any outside speakers.
Okay, chief, thank you. Can you go to the upstairs view, sorry?
Yep.
So the acknowledgements here,
Here at the top of the stair, and here
Yep.
at the top of the pole.
okay. And that's it, just, is there one on the admin side?
Yes, because the screens, so in this room here, there's a 22-inch display that has the acknowledgement button.
Mhm.
So actually, these 22-inch displays, they come with the acknowledgement button and a remote radio.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a little setup there.
And-
So that happens here, here, and in the day room.
Not in the kitchen, there's nothing in the kitchen.
So it's all one room?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kitchen's like right here.
I just know from our standpoint, we had an old telegraph system basically with an acknowledgement button.
Mhm.
And there was one located in the watch desk and one located in the kitchen at the firehouse that I worked in.
Okay.
When we switched to the alerting system that we have, which I don't know what the manufacturer is, but it's similar with the touch screen and all that. Now there's only one acknowledgement button in the whole firehouse, and that's just in the watch desk. And as far as getting grant money and staffing and whatnot, you need a short time from dispatch to acknowledge. And then if you have a longer time from acknowledge to on scene, then that helps build your case for further staffing and funding and whatnot. So we had asked, a bunch of people asked the city if they could put in acknowledgement buttons in other areas that would make them more accessible, and they weren't there. They're not there yet. It's been a decade almost.
Okay.
So from our standpoint, what I like is like where like a lot of folks hang out in the kitchen, it makes sense to put one accessible there, which I think it seems like there is, but that's just what my concern was.
Yeah, it's part of that open space, and in fact, this is no longer a display. These are older plans that we had given to Allcom
Mhm.
to do this. So this is actually over here in this area,
Okay.
right between the two, because that display case is going away.
Yeah, sorry, I was just
Mhm.
wanted to explain where I was coming from.
Sure, no, that's good. Okay, so that's that system, and then you can see here we put together pretty comprehensive low voltage plans. And these have everything from, like these are the symbols right here. So it's keypad hardware. So what that means is if you walk up to a door, you type in a key, or your combination rather, and you get through the door. There's no card reader. And we're doing this for two reasons. Number one, security, and number two, because a keypad hardware is less money than a card reader, like significantly less. So what the chief has done is gone through, and we've checked this with our hardware consultant, that wherever there's a card reader, there's also going to be a keypad. It's one device. Got, you either punch in your code or swipe your key, and it's a proximity card. So, and then we've got video intercoms. So the good news is the video intercom is going to be reused. They have 2 video intercoms right now at the station and 2 cameras that are connected to the mech. We're going to use those exact ones and just relocate them. There's an unlock door control, and then obviously our IT and AV outlets for display panels. This is separate than the Zetron. This is display panels, kind of like what you have here in this room. Automatic openers, desk phones, and the automatic opener, the A is the automatic opener for the vehicle control, and that's what you had talked about earlier. When you're backing into the station, the lights go on. So there's that interlock. and then there's the alarm panel. So we've gone through the station on several occasions. I don't think Blake wants to talk about it anymore. Just to confirm and reconfirm, and we're also, as the plans continue to get updated, like we've taken away some rooms, right? Like we talked about earlier, so when you take the room away, you don't actually need these things anymore. So what you also see here, and I think this was part of your packet at one point, but it keeps getting updated obviously, is room by room, we know exactly what's going in every one of those spaces. We've done that for the first floor and the second floor. So what this is doing for us is it's making sure that we're not over budgeting the project, and it's making sure we have the monies that we need in the project to cover all of these, what people might say are just, typical or standard or whatever, but yeah, but we want to get a cost on that. We want to know exactly what we're doing. So doing this process, like I said, we've eliminated 2 low voltage systems, and we've realized that the telephone system can be expanded into the fire station, so you don't have to buy a new telephone system. And TON actually has enough handsets, so you don't even have to buy the handsets. So basically, the telephone system on this project now is reduced to just wiring the system within the building. All the components are already in the town.
And I think one thing to mention too for, Justin, I know you'd mentioned or at one point it was a concern, the PA system. So one thing that we learned in doing the Zetron piece and working through this low voltage, the Zetron system and their speakers will automatically have the PA or public address system or paging system within the station. So from those screens that are the Zetron displays we talked about, there's one in the day room / kitchen area, one in the admin area, and one downstairs, towards the PPE at the base of those stairs to be visible. So if there is some reason or some issue, we can do a hall tone out or a complete hall notification, which is something we don't have now, but, since it's already incorporated into the system, it's just going to make, the communication capability within our building, or the internal network, if you will, more effective and more efficient. It'll give us something we currently don't have the capability to do.
Yeah, that will be good, especially with a larger space. Paging ability would be nice.
Yeah. It's an enhancement that just comes with the package. We're not paying extra for it. It's embedded in the system, so we might as well take advantage of it and use it.
So that's the low voltage piece of it.
Any questions? Is that also the Zetron meeting update from June 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primary Power, GGD, and Eversource, May 23rd meeting update.
Yep. So always learning something new. What we have on the screen now is
Welcome to the room.
Yeah.
Just some boards there,
Yeah,
but there's
I
also
could-
some seats on the other side.
you can move these.
Oh,
Yeah. We got colors for later on. So we met with all the low voltage folks, and we've got all that figured out. But when we met with the power company, so over here, kind of just to the east of Dunkin' Donuts, the Eversource, I don't even know what to call it. I've never seen that kind of container up above ground before. It's usually below ground, and it's an electrical manhole. Just imagine that sitting on the ground. So that's where it is. And our transformer is down over here, kind of like where the existing trailer is.
I can't see that, I can just see the low voltage.
Oh, what's happening?
I don't know.
Let me,
Yeah, your screen, you still got the low voltage line.
Yeah.
there. Better?
There we go, thank you.
Sorry. So from this point right here going down is the electrical duct bank that will go to the new transformer, right? So when we met with Eversource, our big question was, instead of digging a trench across the existing fire station, which obviously we would have to do this very quickly, so the fire station stays up and running, rather than go all the way across here and all the way over to where Dunkin' Donuts is with an underground conduit, we asked, there's 2 existing poles right here. This is the neighbor's yard. That little gray line is his driveway. Those 2 poles right there are existing. We said, could we drop a new pole in? Now, we understand that anything from this pole westward towards downtown, it has to be underground. So for that reason, we went back to Eversource and said, well, what if we put it between the 2 existing ones? So that, you know, from here heading east, it's all above ground overhead wiring. So Eversource said they'd be willing to do this if the town thinks that's okay, and so we're gonna have that discussion with the planning board. And what that does is you can see that it reduces the underground conduit greatly, and it doesn't disturb the existing station. So the issue was getting it from point A to point B across the site. And if we're able to do this, so the second good thing about doing this is that pole could go in sooner than later. And then we could sort of use that as a temporary means to keep the station up and running, whether or not we want to get the transformer in. So I think it was a really good discussion to have with them. We're also, if you see this here, the only place we're going through asphalt is across the right-of-way, the neighbor's driveway, so there's that much of replacement asphalt, if you will, as opposed to that plus all the street. So just another way to do it, kind of a better way, and we've asked for their permission. They've told us to get the thumbs up from the town to drop that pole in, and they'll do it.
And talk with a neighbor
I was gonna
about
say,
another pole in front of their
Do
house.
we need to talk to the neighbor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the chief said he's gonna.
Yeah, I will talk, I'll talk to the neighbor, like, he's been great, he's excited about the project. You know, I don't know how, it's not another pole in front of his house.
Might throw
But,
some holy water on
But
it.
I'll definitely talk to him and, you know, just get a tenor or get a feel for what his thoughts are. And I just want, for clarification's sake, when I talk to him, is that pole will then be permanent and the new source for power coming to the whole site permanently?
Yes, it's a permanent pole.
Is that correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure to cover that, because I imagine that might be a question of his. If it's temporary, he may be okay, and if it's permanent, he may be like, no. So
The other
we'll have a
pole,
discussion with him and see what his thoughts.
the other pole that's further away, the last blue dot, could
This
that
one.
possibly come out at all if we drop this other one? So he doesn't
Um,
have to have an extra one?
So no, the only reason I say no is because Eversource said no. So I was,
I'm just curious.
yeah, we learned that this pole right here has it's called their end of line pole. There's just way too much stuff on that pole to move it, because we were suggesting to put the pole here and move everything from this pole to that pole.
I'm talking about the one,
Right,
Yeah.
so then we asked, can we get rid of this pole and, you know, or bring down everything on this pole across? So instead of going to a new pole, we go to here, and the answer was again, no, because it's a different type of pole. So these are initial discussions, our second meeting with Eversource. In this meeting, it wasn't only like, let's find a better way to skin the cat, but maybe that's not such a good phrase. Find a better way to do something. But also it comes down to schedule, right? So when the project starts, the first thing the contractor's gonna need to do is take down the existing transformer, which we all know is in the footprint of the new building. So that means they gotta get the new transformer in there, right? So if we can't backfeed from the pole, we've talked to Eversource about the town actually ordering the transformer. So what that means is the day the contractor shows up, it's not a lot of this, you know, the contractor asks the filed sub-bid electrical contractor to do whatever calculations they need to do, and then order the transformer from Eversource, and then God knows how long that takes. The idea would be that our engineers would do that, the town would order the transformer. We've already got the work order in order to do that. What that means is if the vote passes, fantastic. If the vote doesn't pass, the town is the proud owner of a transformer for when the vote does pass. But, you know, putting out that small amount of money to make sure you have a transformer sitting there waiting for your project is probably money well spent, as opposed to waiting weeks, if not months, which is what typically happens for the utility to get the transformer and come out and install it.
Right.
So, and they'd be happy to work with you on that.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, I don't care who pays them.
Well, it seems like that's definitely a better solution. Hopefully
for
it
sure.
passes.
Yeah, we just, you know, when we were out there with the low voltage team a couple of weeks ago, you know, the engineers and us, we were just saying, it's gotta be a better way to do this, because this is gonna be a problem, frankly. So. Okay, so that was that. What's next on the list? Or any questions?
Exterior rendering.
All right.
Yeah, I don't, how long does the chief have before he's gotta?
Chief, what's your schedule tonight?
'Cause I-
You have me until I get inside the arena, which is probably another 45 minutes, you know, or so.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was just gonna jump down to community day.
Sure.
If, in case you needed to hop off, because you're not even really gonna be able to see probably the materials that Ron brought, so.
I have pictures. He's already seen
He's
them.
seen
Oh, he's already seen it?
Yeah,
This
he's already,
afternoon.
yeah, the chief has seen all
The
of
three
these
of
things.
Okay,
And the firefighters also.
all right, then why don't we'll go through the renderings.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So, why can't I? My screen's not coming up. Maybe I need to shut something. I shut the wrong thing. All right, here we go. So we had our community meeting, and there were a lot of good ideas given out by the community. One of which was how white is white, right? So what you see here in the rendering via the shadows is a couple of different whites, right? So you kind of get this white and shadow that is sort of like a lighter gray versus a white versus a different type of gray here and here. And then the other thing that came out of the meeting was the idea of painting this community room and the training room the same gray as these bumps.
Oh, that was a good idea.
That is a
Whoever
good
came
idea.
up with that idea.
So, you know, it's like some of these towns, it's just filled with architects, right? They all have the same. And so, anyway, this is the result of that community meeting, and obviously everyone thinks that this is a better look. And then how does it, you know, transition as we kind of walk around the building again? And the idea again is that the training stair is also that gray. And then we're also thinking the bump out in the back of the building, which is the gear area, would also be that gray. So it really starts to break down the mass. It really starts to sort of give sort of a much better scale to the building. We are gonna get that black fire truck in for the next time that you see.
Just have to paint the fire truck black.
Yes, we
Thank you, Tom.
Welcome.
Exactly. And so that's where we are, sort of on the updated elevations. We have met with the design review board, and my understanding is the design review board will be there on, yeah, see?
Did you pay?
See, it looks better, doesn't it? Yeah.
There you go.
See? Yeah.
Ooh, the whole thing.
If you want to just email that to us, we'll take
I
that.
will. I've been busy. But there's one more idea there too.
One more.
The gable in the middle.
Yeah, the gable in the middle, black.
How's that
Is that door white for a functional reason?
No.
Yeah, that was bugging me too.
How's
Oh,
it?
Okay.
So anyway,
So-
my 2 cents on this one.
Yep.
Are you done?
He's
Sorry,
been
I
busy
didn't- I
next to
didn't
me.
get
The white door is a compromise because all the doors, there's too much red in some people's opinion, and I think from an aesthetic point of view, it kind of keeps the three gable pieces kind of some continuity. So,
Oh,
you know, I caved
see?
in on it a little bit.
Chief, I'm gonna email you a picture.
So that, I mean, that's obviously the update, and the design review board will be present, from what we've been told, at the July 12th planning board meeting, so they can make whatever recommendations they want to make at that point. We are gonna, like I said, submit either Friday or Monday on all the documents, and these renderings will be included, so.
Yeah, I think my concern with it being white is just keeping it tidy and presentable, like, is there some sort of finish or paint or something we can use to kind of help that? I think you had mentioned some sort of paint system that might clean more easily or be self-cleaning or.
Yeah, and like I said, it kind of has a bumpy feel to it. It's an additive that you put into paints and hasn't been around a long time, so we haven't vetted that in the office yet.
Where are we with what the exterior material is?
Okay, so the exterior material is still at the moment, is still the composite material that we share with everybody, the Westlake. We are gonna do two things, so we do have two equals to that, which are a high-density fiber cement, Swiss Pearl, and Equitone. That would have a similar look to this, not exactly the kind of wood look, if you will, because it's more of a finished it's more of a panel, if you will. The other options that we're gonna price up is not only this, but it's fiber cement with a PVC, like cellular PVC trim, such as AZEK or restoration millwork. And then the third option we're gonna price up is vinyl siding. And wood.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll also price up the wood. But we're not only just pricing it up because we all know that the least expensive first cost is gonna be vinyl siding. The second least expensive is most likely gonna be the wood. And I say that because we do have some experience where the cedar actually came in more money than the Westlake. But we expect it to be, the least expensive is the vinyl siding, the second least expensive is the wood, and then the fiber cement would probably be a little bit more than the wood, or again, similar price, and then the product that we're specifying. So in light of that, we want everybody to know the total cost of ownership. So the total cost of ownership is gonna be, what do you need to do in terms of maintaining this? So lots of folks out there, I think the term was vinyl is final, is what we've heard. And it is and it isn't, right? So vinyl siding has a lot of pros and cons, just like any other material. And the chief has reminded us that one of the cons, or one of the sort of downsides to vinyl siding is, and he shared with us some photos of recent fires, where when it melts, it becomes an accelerant. So instead of putting out a bush fire next to a house, they actually put out the whole house, which has significant damage to the siding and the substrates, because when the vinyl siding melts, it's like adding, I think he said, diesel fuel to the fire. And the toxins that you get off of vinyl siding is one of the reasons why the codes have all changed, to protect firemen and decontamination and so forth. So just like earlier comments about the fire station promoting one thing versus another, what does it mean, to the fire industry to have a fire station with vinyl siding on it? So the wood has also come up in discussion. We understand that the town hall was clad in wood when it was built and now has vinyl siding around it. So there was obviously some maintenance issues with the wood. We've also been told that the fiber cement has had some issues over at the library project. And the reason we've recommended what we've recommended is all of those materials, the vinyl siding, the wood, and the fiber cement are all susceptible to water, right? Vinyl siding is not a sealed system. It's more of a rain screen, if you will, because water is going to get behind there. The wood obviously has its downside when it comes to water, and so does standard fiber cement. So the three products that we would be speccing would be the Westlake product, which is not susceptible to water, as well as the high density fiber cement, which again are made completely differently than what you typically see for fiber cement. but they are more of a paneled appearance. We can still do the cord and batten, we can still do the horizontal looks to them, but it just looks more of a modern material than the Westlake composite, which is really designed to look like wood. The other thing about the Westlake though is that it does need to be painted, not as often as wood, and not as often as the fiber cement, but it does need, to be painted over time. It holds paint better than the wood does. The two other materials we're speccing never get painted. They're like I said, it's more of a panelized system, and that type of panel comes all pre-finished. So that's where we are with the siding.
I'm sorry for my little soapbox on vinyl. It's not that it's the worst thing in the world. I think it's good in little accent pieces and things like that, but for it to be the whole covering, I've got horror stories. I'm sure Justin probably has some experiences where, I've had sets of gear ruined. I've got a burn on my shoulder from the siding melting and igniting and dropping on me and, burning me through my gear. So I'm not a big proponent of it. I feel like there's better, safer materials and, it is what it is, just the decision of the group to say, this is what we need to do. I'm not going to not be cooperative and support that, but I just wanted to make it known that I'm just, I have my issues with it and I'm not a huge proponent of it. And every time I take a shower and look in the mirror, I've got a nice burn mark on my right shoulder that reminds me of why I don't like vinyl. And last night we had a major fire in Plainville that went to 4 alarms, which, had the siding on the condominium complex been a different material, I would dare say we wouldn't have been there at 4 alarms and with multi-millions of dollars worth of damage, because the simple bushfire and mulch fire would have been just that. And we would have just been maybe, investigating behind where the bush burned, as opposed to it burning into the soffits and knee walls and melting the siding and becoming a mini conflagration, if you will. So.
Yeah, I'll add that being a green community wouldn't be very responsible for the town to support a vinyl siding either. Vinyl's
Right.
an extremely unsustainable product.
And our office, same with the PVC. We're really trying to get away from the use of any PVC because the manufacture of both those products are pretty damaging to the environment.
So what's the timeline of when those options would be priced out?
So we're finishing up design development on June 14th.
Yeah.
And we hope to have numbers back by the end of the month. Steve's office is also doing an estimate.
The cost out, do you mean the cost out of these options or the overall design development estimate?
The cost of these options.
Yeah,
so
that's, I
we
want
can
to
select
clarify.
something.
Yeah.
I think you were headed in a different direction.
No, we
I think he said
we
he's
were gonna
pricing
price
as part
these
of
up as part of the estimate.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah, but so we're adding to that, right? So when we get these numbers back at the end of the month that we're pricing up as part of the estimate, we're also gonna present a life cycle analysis, total cost of ownership for each of the 4 different materials. Which I can tell you will start a debate, right? Because what we believe to be the life cycle analysis on something, we'll have evidence to back that up. But as you all know, lots of people put vinyl siding on their homes and they just don't mess with it for 20 years. They sell the house or whatever, I have fiber cement on my house and I bet my wife would like me to fix it. But I can tell you it hasn't been fixed in a while. So, I think.
And it still works.
Well, some would argue. Just like anything else, it's how well was it installed, and how well is it standing up to the weather.
I think that's a great point, and I think also what is going to be more forgiving over time too. There's a life cycle analysis, and you could say that the vinyl is easy and no maintenance, but really the sun's going to fade it. It's going to be impacted by the shrink swell and becoming brittle when it's cold, and then what happens behind it. you know, and is it forgiving? Because what happens behind it is going to be hidden, and then it may not be revealed or reveal itself until it's a major problem where, you know, with the fiber cement or maybe the other projects, yeah, maybe it's not that pretty, but is it, you know, is your house going to fall down, or is it rotting behind that right now? No, it just needs to be touched up, right? And that's the kind of thing you can defer as opposed to something that is, you know, damaged or problematic. And just, you know, that's my thought too, you know, with that is, you know, you get a hole in the vinyl, or you get water behind the vinyl or behind one of the seams, you know, you're talking about rot and mold and moisture and, you know, issues like that are now a hidden issue that could be growing behind the scenes. You get insects, you get, you know, just various types of problems, where with those other products, you know, they're sealed, they're watertight, you know, yeah, it may be ugly if you don't touch it up or maintain it, but it's something you can defer and not worry about it being a major issue or structural issue. It's a more of a cosmetic or an inconvenience versus, oh my gosh, we've got serious problems.
Okay.
Okay.
We know where the chief stands on it.
Yep.
All right, interior color
Yes.
options?
Yeah, so I have the boards behind me, but I also, for everyone at home, took some photos. So what you see here is this image right here. And so what we're thinking about is in the fitness center, so the color of the floor, if you will, this is the rubber floor that we shared with everybody last time, and then maybe an accent wall colored. The bathroom wall would have panels, and the panels would essentially look like this. And then in the sleeping rooms, we were thinking of a little bit more of a darker color for the walls as opposed to the standard white. And again, it's like a what is white, right? How white is white? This color could also be the panelized drywall that you see here. And then in the bathrooms, you kind of got these two colors working together. The epoxy flooring in the bathrooms, and then the counters are solid surface. So I don't know if you want me to pass this around, or so that's what was presented.
You can send them a bill, right?
Oh, yeah.
So get that away from him.
I know, that's not my job description, to take away his toys.
I think I like this.
I've heard it designed by committee before. So, and then this picture here, what you see here is the kitchen, and it's a very simple floor. We were thinking of sort of a checker pattern, if you will. These are the two different colors for the casework, basically the cabinetry, and the island would be darker. Basically what this is doing is just giving a warm residential feel to the whole space. And then we've got the island, which is the solid surface again, and all the window sills throughout the building will be this solid surface. And then, again, same thing, these are the doors and the casework and the laminate and the counters. And so this, now I will say that the, many of the firehouse staff members,
Yes.
many of the firehouse staff members have also seen this, or seen these boards, and gave everything the thumbs up. So this board right here, we've got some flooring materials, and this is the flocked carpet that we had talked about earlier. And then this is your neutral wall color, the white, if you will. You can see it's not exactly white, it's an off-white. Door frames would be a little darker. Again, there's an accent wall color of red, which is Todd's favorite color, we've learned. And then we've got some trim, some wall trim around the room here, the wall base, and we've got some different types of entrance tile. So the entrance walk-off mats will both be of metal in the vestibule and outside the building, and then a walk-off carpet just to keep everything clean. And then what we have is the staircase treads, and then obviously those are the ceiling. So the other thing that you're looking at here is, this is the design of the ceiling for the training room. So there's no recognition or anything of any kind of trusses or whatever, it's basically a coffered ceiling now. And so, again, that was just sort of an update to the design based on feedback, obviously. And so, what we also told everybody today was that, you know, the paint colors are, you know, we can specify paint, pick whatever color of the rainbow anybody wants. So one of the things that we recommend is that as the contractor submits paint, so they'll submit to us whether they want to use Benjamin Moore, whether they want to use Sherwin-Williams or PPG, or Dutch Boy. I saw you have a Dutch Boy store in town. So haven't seen that in 30 years. So basically whatever kind of paint they want to use, we would then, that meets our spec, I should say. We built some mock-ups in the existing station. So we basically take advantage of the fact we're knocking down that building, and we would paint some of those accent colors, some of those wall colors, so you all could see exactly what that's gonna look like, as opposed to waiting until, you know, the contractor paints one room. So those are the colors and the products that we've been talking about to date. And this was a process, so we brought in a couple of different color schemes. And this is kind of the resulting colors from that, having met with the chief and the staff and the working group.
I don't have any comments.
No, I don't either.
So that was,
We're good with that.
that's it on that.
Our options. Mass Save meeting update from June 8th.
Yep. So today we met with Mass Saves again. Hopefully this is good news. So to cut to the chase, they have a new program, or I shouldn't say that, they have a refined program, an updated program. And what this means to you is that they used to just have the tier 1, which was an EUI of 35 or less. They've since, obviously since we started working on the project, they've updated this to a tier 2, which is now 36 to 40 for public safety, fire and police. Right now, our energy model is tracking just under 40, so we're at 39 point something. And I do want to remind everybody that the quote unquote green buildings typically have an EUI of 50 to 65. And so, just to give you an example, we are trying to check this with our mechanical engineer. When we started the project, we were assuming 150 tons. And tons is just a way to measure air conditioning versus BTUs of heating. He sent us a note actually during our meeting today that I didn't catch until after, that the size of the heating system and air conditioning system has gone from 150 tons to 51. So this is when we talked at the beginning of the whole process, where we say, you know, energy, the good thing is you spend some money on one thing and it reduces cost of something else. So we're checking with him because that's a big change, right? 150 to 51. But the change in the program, you used to be getting $1.25 per square foot. And if we stick to the fact that we'll be between 36 and 40, you're gonna get $1.50, so it's 25 more cents. And then if we can get to 35 or less, it's $2. Before you were getting nothing for using a VRF system, and now they're gonna give you $400 per ton. That $400 is still in a state of flux. They think it's gonna be even more by the time the building is sent in with the final documents. So we should say at least $400 per ton, and that's their incentive to actually use air source heat pumps, VRF, or ground source heat pumps, which is geothermal. The other thing is, we used to be getting $1 a square foot post occupancy, and now it's $1.50 or 75 cents depending on how the EUI shakes out. And then if you get 35 or less, you still get another adder for every point reduction. So what this means is, let's say our energy model goes in and we're at 39. When they come out a year later and they get your 12 months of utility bills, if you're at 38, you get more money back. And the amount of money you get is a nickel per square foot. And then the certification incentive is $3,000. So if you meet what you're supposed to meet, you get another $3,000. So the good news is the incentives are getting even greater from Mass Save, and whether it's Eversource or National Grid, they're the ones pushing this. So we're in a good spot, and I think as Aaron talked about, you being a green community, this is a big sale point. You will probably be the first net zero energy ready fire station in the state. Depending on timing, how quick we can get this built. So, and then that goes hand in hand with the question we had from some of the residents during the community meeting, is there potential for solar? Because you have an all-electric building, it's a 1-to-1. So for every kilowatt you put up a solar panel, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. If you're using gas, you'd need 3 watts for every one from the gas. So anyway, that's where we're at with the Mass Saves.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's good news. Okay. I had building envelope commissioning update.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep, the building envelope commissioning RFP is out, sent it to 7 firms, inclusive of Gale Associates, Simpson, Gumpertz, Hager, Russo Barr, Building Enclosure Associates, Building Envelope Consulting, Building Envelope Technologies, and Thrive, which is 3 IVE. Those are due back on the 21st of this month. Oh, I've already received a acknowledgement from Gale. They're looking at it, so.
You said June 21st, those are due back?
Yep.
So we can
It's
update you on
day
the
before,
22nd.
yeah, it's the day before.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
I had one, kind of unrelated to this, but now that we're wrapping up DD, when do we have to start the pre-qualification process for contractors?
Well, it's funny you should say, we talked about putting the schedule together at our working group meeting. The project is being bid just before Thanksgiving, so we want to be having the pre-qualification package probably take roughly 12 weeks. We want that before that goes out, so we can put that information within the package itself.
So 3 months before Thanksgiving. So that's August, right?
Yeah, it's August, September. Yep. So I've already given my coworkers that deal with that notice to put that on their schedule, and we'll probably have a little
Yeah, what steps?
presentation and run through with the committee at a meeting before.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what step, I know we need to form like a subcommittee, right?
It's a subcommittee, right, OPM, architect,
So,
owners.
Yeah, so I guess,
I mean, generally speaking, we do most of the legwork.
yep,
Yeah, but we still have to review everything that comes in, and it could be, I mean, with the file sub-bidders, that can be quite a lot.
okay,
So
so,
we're gearing,
Yeah.
we're a little bit before it now, but not too much before.
all right. I would just say, let us know when we need to kind of start getting that
Yep.
duck in a row, because I think the summer's gonna go by kind of quick here, but, okay.
Yep.
On the point of summer, the select board set their schedule for meeting this summer and the rest of the year. Their next meeting would be July 14th, and so also at the working group today, that's a Thursday, we talked about being ready to make the DD presentation and have the cost estimates that both firms are doing ready to present that night.
Okay,
So hopefully that's the date that,
and that gives you a month, because you said DD was completed June 14th.
Right, yeah, we think, so we're kind of thinking 2 weeks, Steve, for your,
Right, that's,
yeah, so
And then you reconcile after that.
and then we reconcile after it, so, you
We have
know,
a little bit of a internal review, then we have a combined, remote meeting with the estimators to go through things. Hopefully we're not too far off. And then, put together that consolidated estimate.
and it would be our goal to present the reconciled estimate to the select board.
So then we can review the DD package at our next meeting, right, on the 22nd?
Sure.
Okay. Right, I'm assuming it'll get sent out next
Yeah.
Tuesday. Okay.
Now, we, for what it's worth, save a tree. We typically don't print these out, if you will. We can send a link with the PDFs in there if folks are interested. Or we can have just a meeting dedicated to that, and we can just walk through, do sort of like a page flip of the whole set. The whole architectural set, and then anything that anybody's interested in, rather than print out a whole set of documents that are design development.
Email PDF.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if
Yeah.
you send it on the 14th and then we have basically a week to go through it, we can come with comments.
Yeah.
If anybody has any for that 22nd meeting.
Yeah, and it is both drawings and specs, so when you get the PDF, it's gonna look like a lot, because it is a lot. So even if we wanted to just kind of go through it, or just, sometimes I recommend to a committee that you kind of break it up into sections, right? So one of you look at one thing, another one looks at some other thing, another one looks at some other thing, and this way here, you're not overwhelmed by it, but you've each had a set of eyes on what you're interested in. Because I know someone's gonna be really interested in the plumbing.
You really missed your opportunity to say a black fire truck.
Or a black fire truck, but we're not spec'ing the black fire truck. That's,
It's a different committee.
that's on order some other way. All right.
So I just want to talk about Community Day on the 11th. I don't think we're going to have, we don't have a booth or anything, so we don't have anything formal, but
So I think it'd be helpful if Aaron can jump in on this, because the
Yeah.
fire department, I think, is planning to have a presence.
Yeah.
Chief, can you help us out with that?
Yes. Yeah, we're, we were planning on at our meeting.
hold on a second, Chief.
Is it the TV?
Mute your computer.
Unmuted.
Your actual speakers.
Go again, Chief.
All right, go ahead, Chief.
Technology.
All right. We were planning on, we're having a presence there, and the thought was brought up with our staff at our booth, where we'll be giving away food and drinks, to have the boards there. And my staff is actually putting together some plywood stands that would be reusable for us in the future as well for the boards. So the plan was for us to bring all of the boards to Community Day and have a presence there and be ready to either have conversations or, potentially discuss the project. My lieutenant, Finland, who is the gentleman in particular, the majority of the time leads the tours of the station, is very knowledgeable about, the limitations and the things that we face as challenges, but also has been in attendance at a lot of the, the meetings that we've had. It was going to be there and be on hand to, kind of answer questions. And, I'll be there for a portion of the day, if not all of the day as well. And obviously, if there's a planned presence for members of the building committee to be there, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be there for a little while, so I can stop in and hang out for a little bit. I don't know exactly what
We'll give
time
you
frame I'll
we'll
be
give
there.
you some burgers and hot dogs.
Sure. Okay.
That's a good opportunity
What
for
are
us
the
to at
hours?
least
I think it's
Show
11 to
things.
4. believe, right?
Yep.
Does anybody know?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Gotta get there early to build a birdhouse, though, they go quick.
Especially the owl ones. We still have ours up in our garage. Okay. That's great, Chief, thank you.
We'll do this, for members of the building committee, we'll actually do custom orders. We'll do medium well. We'll try to take care of you. We're not doing that for everybody else, just for you guys, all right?
Works. Nice.
And one of the boards has the QR code on it, right?
We'll get them again.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta print those on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we gotta print those on a piece of paper. Maybe I'll just, I'll get with, my staff if I can. I don't know if I still have the email with the QR codes. Maybe I'll give it Todd. If I can get a couple of the QR codes, I'll have them, put them on the plywood somewhere, that hopefully doesn't block or obscure the actual boards, or we'll just, have a separate small piece of plywood, or we'll, maybe take them to the table so as people go by, they can scan it if they want.
QR codes to the fancy new website.
Can we print them on the paper plates that come with it?
Yeah.
Finish your burger in the
That
QR
costs
code.
money.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the QR code would be really, really good to have there. Unfortunately, it's not pointing to the new website. It's not live yet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Pressure,
coming.
pressure's on.
Along with the website, I just want to tell, I don't know if we sent out an email or not, but the committee now has a general mailbox.
Mhm.
When an email comes into it, I get an email, and the town administrator gets an email as well.
Yep.
So, and then we can respond directly to that. So if we get any comments, I can bring it to the committee, or if I just feel like I can respond to it,
Yep.
so. We should talk about maybe upcoming meeting schedules. So we've got one on June 22nd,
Yep.
where we can review the DD. So that would put the next one after that, the week of the 4th of July. I don't know if we potentially want to skip that one, if people are away, or
I actually won't be here for the 22nd.
you won't be here for the 22nd,
I'll be
okay.
on vacation that week.
So the next would be the week.
It'd be the 20th. It'd be the day of the ZBA meeting.
We usually start at 6, so you probably could do that before.
Yeah, I think as long as we're maybe later in the ZBA,
That's July 20th.
it'd be July 20th, yeah.
I won't be here for that. I'm working for that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, so are people around on the 6th, or do we want to skip that one?
Skip that one.
I'm around, but, I mean, I don't know if Ron's around, so.
I'm not around on the 6th, but I can be available.
July 6th, I think I'm available then.
What's that?
July 6th, I think I'm available then.
Well, why don't we
I can do it by Zoom.
can meet on the 22nd, then we'll figure out if we feel we need to meet on the 6th, or skip it, so, okay. Next item,
Sorry, one suggestion before. Why don't we skip August?
I'm sorry,
People are rarely around in August.
skip all of August?
And meet late in July, like the 27th.
So meet back-to-back weeks?
Oh, I thought the 20th was in question, sorry.
It's July 27th, not June.
Yeah. So we're meeting June
22nd.
22nd,
June 22nd.
yeah,
We were looking to maybe skip this July 6th,
yep.
and then our next meeting would be on the 20th. I
Oh,
don't think we were
okay.
skipping
So
the
I thought
20th.
I didn't realize the 20th was in the
Yeah.
books. Never mind.
I mean, we can deal with August when we get to it. I am around that week. It would be the 10th and the 24th. I'm around. Or, I'm sorry, it would be the 3rd and the 17th. I'm around both those weeks, but others aren't. We
And
can-
it'd be great if people could come to the select board meeting on the 14th. Well, planning board on the 12th, 14th, select
Yeah.
board with a
That
DD
one.
presentation.
In August?
Alright.
July.
That's July.
I can't make either of those, Kevin.
I don't think I
As a heads up.
Yep, I can make the 14th.
I can't make
What,
it.
I'm sorry, what was the other one that you?
July 12th is a Tuesday, it's the planning board meeting to
Yep, I
discuss
have
the
that away.
drainage swale.
I guess I don't have many plans this summer, I guess.
Well, yeah, you do. Just not the ones you wrote.
Didn't have
Staying
any.
right in town.
And the 14th would be the
Staycation.
select board meeting.
Yeah, I have the 12th and the 14th, and then the 20th, we were already meeting anyway, so. Okay. I think on the 22nd, we technically need to consider, or we have it as an action item now.
I
so-
did, you don't have to do it tonight, but I put it on here as if the board,
Well-
if the committee's ready to vote on.
So I will bring up, John Kent is not renewing, so we will have an open position on the committee, which we can open up to the public, or if people have recommendations, we can certainly weigh those also.
Well, I won't be here on the 22nd.
Okay. So we should go through-
Reconsidering, I might actually be able to make it 22nd. I'll be coming home that afternoon. So,
Will we have a quorum on the 22nd then?
I think I should be here the 22nd.
You're still
I get one more.
around. So I think we'll be okay. Celtics are done by then, so we know the chief will be here.
Well, if you wanted to wait on the voting on reorganization, you just, if you're not here to,
Well, let's,
God knows what you'll get elected to.
why don't we, well, we can.
That was my point of bringing it up.
We Well, let's talk about it right now. So, reorganization, I am certainly willing to stay on as the chair of the committee, unless anyone else has a strong desire to be. I'll take silence as no. So then I guess I would still like to have, obviously, the vice chair and clerk positions filled.
So someone should make a
Same.
motion for chair first and second.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if I could just say we're gonna keep the same organization.
Well, they should vote on it, so.
Okay.
Motion for Kevin to serve as chair for the next term,
Yes, next FY '23.
FY '23.
Second. Oh, so moved. Sorry.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll vote for myself, aye.
You have to abstain.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, you
Okay,
can't vote for
I
yourself.
abstain.
It's conflict of interest, man.
You can vote for yourself in the town election.
yeah, that's true.
Do you want to?
I'm happy to stay on as vice unless someone else wants it.
Oh, well, so the chair motion passes.
Yes,
Okay.
you're passed. Unanimous.
Chris or Justin, any desire to be the vice chair?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion to reappoint Aaron as vice chair of the committee for the next
Fiscal 23.
fiscal year 22. Thank you, Todd.
So moved.
Okay. I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. And clerk, you want to stay on as clerk?
Sure, unless anyone else wants it. Sure.
I mean,
It's fun, you need a lot of reading.
I'm still learning here.
All right, I ask for a motion to keep Chris Baker as the clerk of the Fire Station Building Committee for fiscal year 2023.
I'll move that one.
All right.
Because he's
just
got to
a-
read everything, all right?
Just a thought, that at the planning board, the new person is usually the clerk.
Ooh, interesting.
And what new person?
Can we just?
Well, I
Well,
think-
we don't have a new
I think
person.
he's saying the new
Can
person
we
is
just
gonna
tell
be
the
John
new
Kent's
person to be the
replacement.
clerk?
But,
But we don't know who that is.
when that will be.
Yeah, so I think if Chris is willing to do it, I think we stick with Chris.
You could make a motion until such time as the other person, it's up to you, Howard.
Or he could step down and say, I'm done.
Yeah,
But-
we could always move, we can always change it later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so, especially because you're not gonna be here next week, so yeah, I mean, technically there's.
Motion for Chris Baker to continue as clerk for fiscal year '23.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Congratulations,
Awesome.
Chris.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. That was painless. All right, but yeah, if anyone has a recommendation on somebody to appoint to the committee, you could send it to me and I can bring it up.
Yeah, so we have a little application process, and so if we identify someone, let us know, we can get that information to them. And then if we don't come up with someone, we'll usually update the website with the options that are available for volunteer.
And that would go up after the 22nd meeting.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the select board took up some of the appointments last night. They will again on the 21st. We just kind of keep doing it till they get filled. Doesn't have to be on a specific schedule. It's just nice if it's done before the fiscal year starts.
Is there some sort of qualification that's desirable for this opening, or is it just?
Well, the charge does say that the ideally this committee has some diversity in terms of firefighter, architect, engineer, you know. John brought the sustainability to it. There was an interest by the folks who came to that the last community meeting, there'd be someone with a finance background. Well, Todd obviously has that.
I do.
Yes.
More than any of us, anyway.
It's news to me.
It's a low bar.
So I think that's really more the message, but it doesn't absolutely have to be. You know, someone could say, well, I want a lawyer. Well, the town has a lawyer. If, you know, could advise the committee if we needed to.
Or two.
Or two, yes. You get tick in another box there. So the short answer is no, but certainly an interest in, you know, the project and being committed to the time frame that's needed.
No more architects.
Might have a different idea about the color, and God help us all.
More the merrier.
Okay. Last action item, please consider approval of the minutes.
I reviewed the minutes from the May 18th, 2022 regular meeting, found no errors, have no comments. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, anything else that anyone wants to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all
I'm
those
sorry,
in
who
favor?
did that?
What's that?
I was writing
Aaron.
EH and
And Justin.
JY.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Meeting's adjourned. Have fun, Chief.